to Sample Augusta. Today we're talking with Ryan Abel,
Yeah.
a thespian, musician, booking agent, friend and supporter of the arts in Augusta, Georgia.
It's a lot of things.
Over the past decade, he's become a household name here in Augusta, and today we have him here on our couch.
Yeah.
And we're going to ask him some questions. So, Ryan, I see you brought your beard with you.
I didn't bring as much of my beard as I've had. I trimmed it about a month ago, but I'm growing it back out because I'm getting ready to be in a play that I need a beard in.
And can you divulge the
Oh, yeah,
secrets
yeah.
of that?
Christmas Carol, you know?
Oh,
It's
okay.
the Augusta Classic.
Right.
Yeah, with the Augusta Players, we're doing that in December, so I'm trying to get it bearded back up, and it helps for going south, too, because it makes you look more southern.
Definitely. Well, I will say, kind of on that note, this interview was a little hard to prepare for just because you are involved in so many different productions.
Yeah, a couple of things here or there.
There'll be a long list at the end of the interview of everything going on in Ryan's life right now. But you, on October 4th, you're appearing as part of an evening at Rosemary, at the Rosemary Inn Bed and Breakfast?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so I run a theater company as well in North Augusta. I'm the executive and artistic director for a Riverfront Theater Company, and that's theater with an R-E.
I wondered.
Because we're British.
Yeah.
No, because the ER was taken, you know what I mean? So Riverfront Theater Company is in North Augusta, and it's a little benefit that we're partnering up with National Healthcare over there in North Augusta to try and raise some money for our theater company, but as well for some of the nurses and everything over there that are trying to further their education. So, singing just me and a piano, and then some friends are also going to come do like a cabaret style.
Okay, are you going to be playing the piano?
No, praise God. Nobody wants to pay to see that.
I thought maybe you were keeping that up your sleeve.
No. I do play piano, but not in public. But it's going to be a completely different style. You know, it's not going to be rock and roll or Zeppelin or Southern rock. You know, it's going to be more like Frank Sinatra, old school Les Mis, some empty chairs, empty tables. And then a lot of my friends are going to be singing like a lot of weird selections from Broadway, and some old Judy Garland.
Oh wow! So that is different.
Yeah, way different. Very
used to sing.
Very posh. It's a semi-formal event, and the tickets are $75 a piece. But it's at Rosemary, which is a beautiful home. It's where Ulysses S. Jackson was the founder of North Augusta. That was his home.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I grew up in North Augusta.
There you go. Yeah, he lived in that home, and I think it was built in like around the 19-teens.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a gorgeous home though. Absolutely gorgeous.
Do they hold events like this normally, or is this kind of a new thing for them as well?
I think this might be the first one of these, but they do events. Like they've had private parties. They do a lot of weddings there, as you would imagine.
Right. And
they have 6 rooms upstairs that are all like insanely gorgeous. I mean, it's like you're taking a trip back to the 1920s. It's wild. And it's all furnished with, real 1920s style furniture, and it's really, really cool. It was kind of like if you're into history, it's a really cool trip. Makes you go back to like the Great Gatsby type stuff,
I often wonder, I've heard about possible hauntings there. I often wonder about the legitimacy of those claims, but it's interesting. I've certainly been there long enough.
I always think to myself that, I don't believe in ghosts, but then I get to think, this is how over analytical I am sometimes. I don't believe in ghosts, and then you think to yourself, man, you better shut up, or a ghost is going to tell you what's up, So I'm like, maybe I do believe in ghosts.
That's a superstitious mind, right?
Yeah. I don't want to piss them off. I guess ghosts are all right.
Well, just if they like Judy Garland, they'll be maybe the house will be all right then.
You do me, I do me,
So this Riverfront Theater Company, this is brand new, right?
Well, it started 5 years ago, but I just took it over about 16 months ago.
Okay.
And we rebranded to name it Riverfront Theater Company. I didn't want to name the company with a city name. I feel like that's a mistake from a marketing branding level, because I don't want to just be theater for North Augusta. I want to be theater for anybody who wants to come, But I did, and I'm actually very proud of this. Rob Smith actually came up with this, but I'm going to take credit.
Sorry, Rob.
We called it Riverfront Theater Company because North Augusta is South Carolina's riverfront. That's like North Augusta's city slogan. So it's kind of a tip of the cap.
I think it's a great name.
But, just, RTC, it sounds like,
Yeah.
the acronym or whatever rolls off the tongue real quick. And
Right.
so it works out. It checked a lot of boxes, and we're really excited. We've done 4 shows since we've taken over, and got a team together, but we got some work to do, man. Putting on shows is a lot.
Well, and this is not your only show, baby. You also have Going South, which is several performances deep.
We're coming up on our 3rd.
Yeah.
Of course, you were a part of the first 2, and
right.
Thank you so much for being a part of the group and starting that off. And we're really excited for the 3rd one. It's going to be called Brothers and Sisters. So we were going to do this Georgia thing, as you know, because you were in the band, and so
you said that twice.
Yeah. Yeah, she was in the band. She's a bad to the bone singer, man. Don't let her trick you out. Anyway, so we were going to do this Georgia thing, and it didn't work out because Mike Mills from REM and Chuck Leavell from the Allman Brothers and the Rolling Stones, they're kind of doing the same idea.
I saw that at the Miller, and I was curious.
And so we were like, you know what? It's cool. They can do their thing, and we'll still do ours. But then after thinking about it, I was just kind of like, let them do theirs, and we'll go back to doing what we do, which is Southern rock. And, the fans have really seemed to appreciate it. Tickets are selling really, really well, and we're excited about that. Of course, that's a charity event.
Right.
It's for the Augusta Players Camp Wonderland, which helps children that have been diagnosed on the autism spectrum to take part in a 2-week event where they learn through movement and music and acting, social skills. So it's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah,
really
I think it's
cool.
a wonderful, wonderful thing to be a part of. And so this is something that you do a lot of, is participate in charitable events. And you spent many years with Ed Turner in Number 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my 7th year, I think. Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
It's been a while. I kind of want to bring it back a little bit to, you kind of mentioned the style, the Going South style, and that is more of your wheelhouse than what we kind of talked about as far as what you're doing at for the Riverfront Theater show.
Yeah.
At Rosemary Inn. A few years ago, you did an interview with the Metro Spirit about the Coulter Wall show. And
I love Coulter. It's great.
Yeah, he is amazing, actually. Somebody else turned me on to him, and I never knew he was.
He's like a 5'9" Canadian 21-year-old Johnny Cash.
Yes, his voice is so deep.
Yeah, he's itty bitty. You pick him up, put in your pocket.
Yeah, that's wild. I think that's awesome that you brought him in here.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It's notable.
We got in on that real early.
Yeah.
So we were really excited.
Yeah. And so when you were kind of booking that show and around that time, you did an interview with the Metro Spirit, and you described the kind of vibe that you're seeking to create as tattoos, beards, and good music.
Yeah, right on.
And I feel like that's a really good description almost of your angle. You're the classic Southern rock, and so tell me a little bit more about the people that you play with and how they fit into that vibe. And is this, especially with Going South, these are people that you've known for a long time.
Yeah.
They're your friends, but they're also well accomplished musicians.
Oh yeah, they're champions, monsters.
Yeah. So I mean, how much does that vibe kind of describe also the people that are involved with Going South?
Well, Going South was a brainchild that I had leaving a concert at the Miller. The Marshall Tucker Band came, and it was so bad. It just wasn't very good. And and I'm walking out, and this lady, I'll never forget her. I don't know her name. I've never seen her before, but she knew me from Ed Turner and stuff. She was like, "Ryan, you ought to put a band together. You could do better than this." And and no disrespect to Marshall Tucker, man. I got love for you boys. I've been doing it a long time, and there's only 1 or 2 members left that are still on this earth, and I'm happy they're here. But it wasn't a great show that night. You have bad nights, and I was like, that's not a bad idea. And ended up talking to some people and made it work. I was raised on Southern rock and roll and singer-songwriters, and I have my father and mother to thank for that. They were raised in a time in the 60s, right after the Beatles, so they missed the British invasion, but they were primed for the late 60s, early 70s, like Zeppelin, Stones, and then Skinner, Allman Brothers. My dad saw the Allman Brothers before they were, the Allman Brothers. They were the Allman Joys, back, like way back, And my dad played a gig, used to be in a band called the Edisto Sands, and he was a trumpet player. They played Chicago stuff, and he was a tenor, just like I am. And loved Southern rock and roll. We used to follow the brothers. He'd follow Skinner, and he was a hippie, long hair hippie.
So your father was a hippie musician.
Oh, no doubt about it. And my mom was a hippie, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, I don't want to know what you hippie people did. You keep that stuff to yourself, But whatever, free love, whatever. It's not my life, But so when I was born in '82, my dad used to play me, Skinner. He used to play me when I would get grumpy. He'd play "Sweet Baby James" by James Taylor, and I would quiet right down. And I still to this day I love that song. But yeah, I mean, some of my earliest memories were, riding down the highway listening to Leonard Skinner's Ballad of Curtis Lowe, or, whatever. So that's definitely what I grew up. And a lot of people ask me, they're like, when did you start singing? Because I didn't know I could sing. It was the craziest thing.
And sing he can.
I didn't know. I was like 12 years old. I never went to church. Sorry, Mom and Dad, I'm going to tell on you. I didn't go to church. And I didn't know until my grandfather, who ironically was a preacher for 40 years in South Carolina, was retiring. And my whole family's musical. My dad's whole side of the family, they're all insane. Like, we sing 4-part harmony at Christmas. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
And so we're going up and we're doing this show for my grandfather. It was called God With Us by Don Moen. Wow. I don't know how I remembered that, but I did. And so, and I'm just singing with the tape in the back seat. And my parents turn around and they're like, what the hell, when did this, and I don't know if it was like right after the voice change, because I was like 11, 12, or whatever. I was just like, I don't know, I just sang. Never knew it was crazy.
Wow.
So I didn't grow up with, like in church where like the people have like, oh man, I grew up in church and that's where I got my.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's my claim, as far as singing. I used to love singing in church. My parents were probably the opposite, just every time the doors were open, we were there.
You were there, yeah.
And, so.
Well, that's what we became. So, of course, when I became, they're like, oh, you could do this. Wow, okay, well, now you're going to church, And I did grow up in church, but I didn't like come up through the kids wing, So I was in high school choir and.
But music was just around in your household and your family. Oh yeah, so you were always being exposed to.
All the time. To it. And music was how we, expressed ourselves. And music was how we, we would use it to like calm down or get amped. And like so that kind of like expression was taught to me at a really young age. For sure, especially with musicians and that my dad listened to, because it wasn't just like let's listen to top 40 radio. We're driving down the road listening to deep cuts, like On the Hunt by Leonard Skinner. That's a deep cut. Which is on the list for Going South this time around, November 29th. Yeah.
Good plug.
Yeah.
So I would say that I didn't know that about your background. I think that's just so amazing. And for you to associate music with mood and sort of with influence on yourself and others, do you feel like that's really kind of prepared you for connecting with people in live performances, with emoting and really trying to give them that experience, whether they go into a concert realizing that they're going to feel differently when they leave, I feel like yes, your voice is amazing. It's very powerful. And, you've got a set of pipes. But you really give it to the crowd, I feel like.
Yeah, I think for me, because I am a fan myself, I went and saw Skinner. And I'm jealous of my parents. Like, aren't you jealous of your parents? And maybe like their generation. I mean, they got all this amazing music that they could go see. And here I am, when I was starting to get, you're kind of listening to what your parents listen to until you're like 16, you get your own car, 17. Mm-hmm. And, here I am driving down the road listening to Skinner, Bob Seger, Zeppelin. And my parents could go see them. And like, not now when they're, on their kind of their glory days, but like when they were in their prime, man. Could you imagine, like put yourself in this position. It's like the late 60s, early 70s. and you sit down, and for the first time you turn on Zeppelin 2, and you hear and you're like, but you're like, you've heard for your whole life, like Peter, Paul, and Mary, and no offense to these people, but like out of nowhere comes this, and it's like, what the hell? Like, I can't even imagine the first time somebody heard Hendrix. Like, and you think about the Monterey Pop Festival and the Mamas and the Papas, who are bad. They're bad, dude. Monterey Pop, and they put on this Monterey Pop Festival, and you walk out, and at that festival, you had Otis, The Who, Hendrix was there, Janis Joplin and Big Brother, and so you think about, whoa, like you sit down and you're, what's the, Monday, great song, but then here comes Hendrix. And it's like, what? Like, what?
Changed a lot of things.
Oh, man, I couldn't even imagine, and we get stuck with when I was growing up, and we were around the same age, so like, we get stuck and we're coming up like, man, who's going to be the next awesome man? It's the Backstreet Boys.
Ryan Abel for this generation.
No, because like when we were little, because like, all right, it's the 90s, here comes grunge, Pearl Jam. I remember distinctly the first time I heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana. Like, it was a life-changing moment. I was like, whoa, what what is that? And then, we get to high school and I'm just like, yes, man, I can't wait for the new thing. And then it's like the boy band craze. You're just like,
bad timing.
Right? Yeah, man. It's like we get Matchbox 20 in the boy band. I mean, no offense, Rob Thomas, but I'm just saying. But yeah, so like, bringing it all the way back around. I mean, it's cool. God has blessed me, and or karma, or whatever you believe in. I believe in God, but you can believe in whatever you want. Has blessed me, or shown favor, or good karma, whatever. A lot of great people around me, for sure. I mean, Keith Jenkins is just.
Now, Keith has been with Going South with you.
So, yeah, Keith is in Going South. He's the band leader for Going South, but. I mean, I didn't start singing downtown until I was probably like 24, 25, so you're talking like 07 time frame, and really not even for real until probably a little bit later after that. I remember the first time I ever sang downtown outside of church or outside of a theater play, was at Joe's Underground. Mm-hmm. And I was going to see the Edison Project, and I was a big fan of those boys, love those guys dearly. And we're close friends now, but at the time I was just a fan. I was just some random dude. And I'd gotten a chance to meet Jason Enlow, and Michael Badamy was playing in that band. At the time, it was a 5-piece at this time. I didn't see them when they were a 4-piece earlier. And somehow, some way, you've met me, I'm kind of this, I talked my way into sitting in.
You'd never be able to talk your way into anything.
I talked my way into sitting in, and it was so crazy. I was like, they were like, what do you want to play, bro? I was like, I want to play Creep by Radiohead. And they were like, all right. And I didn't know the lyrics, and Jason Enlow was sitting right here to my right, and he was feeding me the lyrics. And I was sitting there singing the song, probably got them all wrong, but it's Tom York, so who cares? Like, just say the vowels, it's fine. And, killed it, had a great time, and they were like, whoa, And then not long after that, was just kind of hanging out. And this is how lucky I am. The first band I was ever in Augusta was called Famous Last Words. And that band had Keith Jenkins, Michael Badamy, Brooks Andrews, and Jamie Jones, and myself. Now, Keith Jenkins had just gotten off, The Godfather. He was James Brown's band leader for like a decade, and James had passed at this time, and so Keith was back in town kind of looking for a gig. Badamy is a monster. He's been a downtowner for, decades now. Jamie Jones, I call him the human, jukebox. He just knows every song. He's a great backup singer as well. And then Brooks, Michael Badamy's little brother, Brooks, is just so lock-in pocket. So that's the first band that I land in, okay? It's not like, 4 guys were trying to figure it out. Like, I show up, and these guys, Keith had been to the he just got done playing, freaking Woodstock, in 99, and he played, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm like, this guy's in a band with me. What kind of luck is this? We had a lot of fun. We played a lot of covers, and we never really wrote anything. Never got into much of that, but a wide range, and that's where I kind of got tapped into some more soul stuff. and more blues, like deep.
You definitely
blues.
have that, in your voice.
And I never really listened to it, other than like what everybody knew, mainstream stuff. But like I never sat down, like I'd never heard of Freddie King at that point in my life. I was 20-something years old, never heard of Freddie King. You've heard of B.B. King, but you never heard of Freddie King, and a lot of different artists, and some of the deeper cuts of B.B. stuff, and Red House. I didn't know Red House or any of those like big, huge songs,
So the group really opened you up to kind of other genres, and
oh man, it changed everything for me. And they really, that's where I learned how to learn a song and have it ready to go without rehearsing it with the band, because we didn't rehearse. We had a standing gig every Monday night at the Loft, and it was called Blue Monday, and Josh Kitchens was the bartender, and we played blues. It was Blue Monday, so we played blues. That's all we played. And they had like $1 shots, and
it's the best place to be if you have the blues, I
guess. Yeah, rock and roll, and come drink your blues away
for a night, just
or for however long it takes.
So you have been on the scene for just over a decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you guys didn't write a lot of original songs, but you do have a couple of originals that you've written.
True,
and songwriting is something, just having known you, songwriting is something that seems kind of near and dear to your heart, and one of those things that maybe you're just holding in the pocket for a while before you take it out and just wow us all, because, I know that your ability is there. But you haven't recorded a lot of originals and put them out there.
Yeah,
you've got a few. So what's your take on, where are you in your musical career, I should say, in terms of what's more important to you, the live performance, the covers, the connecting with people who appreciate certain artists and really love to see them sort of brought back to life in a concert, versus developing something that's original and something that's more all yours? Is that something you're even interested in? Some people aren't really interested in that sort of thing, and and that's just something that they do every once in a while. Is that kind of where you are currently, or is it something you want to do more of?
That's a tough question. Writing to me is extremely intimate. I do write. I write a good bit. I write a lot of more poems and like lyrics than anything. I have mountains and mountains of lyrics, and
you're just sitting on them. I know.
And so, and so I have to be really moved, usually, to find the right vibe. It's hard, maybe this isn't everybody's perception, but this is mine, it's hard for me because when I write a song, I want it to be perfect. And I want it to be as good as the songs that I cover. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's like, man, when I write a song and then I'm like, man, but I could go sing a Jason Isbell song. And Jason Isbell's like way up here, and this song's like down here, and it's like, man, I'd rather just go sing the Jason Isbell, or Bruce Springsteen, who I'm a huge fan of, and or name any other kind of major writers in your life or my life, whoever's life. But so it was hard. It's always been a little hard for me, and usually grief and pain are the two things that get me to write the most. I've got some stuff out there. Me and Philip Lee Jr., may he rest in peace, and Jacob Belts, we did an album together a couple years ago that took us like 4 years because I'm so doggone busy. It's hard to get into the studio, and we recorded that with Sean out in Sean Guest out in Aiken. He's the man. He's a champion.
And that's Digital Halo.
Digital Halo, yeah. He's killer, great guy, easy to work with, and makes you sound way better than you are. And that's what you want in a sound engineer. You're a sound engineer, so a recording engineer. And so, and the other thing is that what I write isn't really what I sing best. Like the type of music that I liked, that I end up writing, is very country bluegrass.
Mm-hmm.
And I like them. I don't dislike them, but it's, I was just like, man, why can't I just write a Zeppelin song, or something like influenced by, obviously, I don't want to go full on, what's the name of that band that's basically Zeppelin Jr.?
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about. You'll know who comments something away, those kids, anyways.
Yeah, so
it's hard for me to get something that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, recently I gave a copy of my CD to Stoney. I don't know if you know Stoney.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's from down. He does like the Local Loudness kind of stuff.
Okay, I've heard of Local Loudness.
And I was like, dude, here's a CD, and I went to an open mic night that well, it's not really an open mic. It's a Southeastern Songwriter Series at Metro that Joe Stevenson is doing, and sang a couple originals there. And he was like, man, these are great, dude, and I was like, well, here's a CD, give it a listen. And I only had 200 or 300 pressed. I'm not trying to be famous. I don't care about that. And he called me. He was like, dude, this is amazing. And I was like, really? But it's really, okay. He's like, no, dude. He's like, dude, there's one song that I wrote. It's there's 5 tracks. 2 songs me and Philip Lee wrote together, because we wrote a whole bunch. I've got a lot of stuff with me and Philip, and I am sitting on that, and I'm going to sit on that for a while, just because that's extremely near and dear and intimate to my heart. And then 2 songs that were written by Jacob Belts without us, obviously, like before us, in a band, when he was in a band called Sibling Stream. And then I wrote a song called Demons that really spawned from my relationship with my mom, which has been great when I was growing up, and a lot more difficult the older I've gotten, because we're so similar and we butt heads a lot. And so everybody, now that they listen to it, they think it's about Phil, but it's not. I wrote it 2 years before he passed away. Didn't have anything to do at all with that, but the lyrics are extremely eerily like, oh my God, like this is about Philip. And so Stoney called me. He's like, man, he was like, dude, I was in tears. Me and my wife were in tears listening to that song. And I was like, cool, I guess. Like, I don't know. You're just like, you never know how music's going to move somebody.
Well, yeah, and maybe that part of you that holds that standard so high. I think sometimes, we're, as artists, we get really self-critical, and it's almost hard to, unless you're really living in that emotion, and unless you've completely, signed up for the final lyrics as they lay or as they land, sometimes it's more difficult to appreciate them.
Yeah.
And it's almost letting other people hear these songs that you've written and give you feedback, I feel would be really, really useful. You say you don't want to be famous, but I feel like you have something to share, and, things that you have written could stand up to these other songs. But I also recognize that you seem to live for that moment on stage. So whatever vehicle, whether it's, this type of song or this song that you've selected, as long as it's a vehicle for you to be able to just set yourself kind of free in that moment when you're on the stage, that to me seems like maybe that's what it's all about.
Oh, live is everything.
Yeah.
Live, being in the moment is everything. And not just in music, like in theater or in comedy. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about, we've talked a lot about music. Now, you have been a part of, I would start listing all of the groups, but there are so many theatrical groups That's not true.
That you've been, well, we've got the Augusta Players, we have a fun theater company, we have, you're a part of Schrodinger's Cats, you still are currently.
Yeah, Schrodinger's Cat, yeah.
And they perform down at Le Chat Noir every first Friday. They perform in comedy improv at Extreme Theater Games.
Yep, like Whose Line. Yeah,
right.
Whose Line is anyway, yeah.
Right.
Short form.
Are there any other theatrical groups that you're currently working with?
Not currently. I mean, I played the Beast in Aiken Community Theater's Beauty and the Beast, like probably 3 years ago now, and I've been at Fort Gordon Dinner Theater before. I haven't been there in a long time though. I like that place a whole bunch. I've been there, but as a patron, not as a performer. And I've been on Le Chat's main stage. And I'm going to be on Le Chat's main stage again later this year, but I can't talk about that yet. But I'm really excited about that. And theater is so much fun. It allows you to be someone you're not, and it's cool. And so I've played bad guys. I've played a lot of the stuff I do is more comedic timing,
Mm-hmm.
and or but I've really stretched myself. It's who I am as a person now and who I was as a person before I started musical theater or theater in general are just miles and miles apart.
How has it changed you?
Oh man, it's opened me up to a lot of different thought processes, to a bunch of different cultures that I would have never gotten to be a part of, and not just like the gay community, but like meeting people that are from Africa, or hanging out with people who are not church folk. They're agnostic, or they're Buddhist, or whatever, and or some of them are LDS, Latter Day Saint, the Mormons, and just having the opportunity to have conversations and learn and do life, and how you can take all these different vast, just completely different spectrums of the world, and you can all come together to create or recreate something beautiful. And a lot of people, doing covers or doing plays, sometimes people get a bad rap about it, and I'm like, yeah, we're recreating something, but we're still creating. Like the way I sing songs or the way I portray a character, yes, it's going to be based on someone else's creation, but it's still my own. It's still my own interpretation of that, or my own feeling,
Mm-hmm.
or my own inflection of a song or a way to do something. And there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for tapping into something that someone else has created, and then making that recognizable, but yet making it your own.
Right.
And theater's allowed me to do that. Man, theater's been crazy to me. I've played an ogre, I've played a beast, I've played an insecure, overweight man who, in the end, has all the confidence in the world to get completely butt naked on stage. Did
no,
that.
wait a minute. Hold on.
I did that. That happened with Chat Noir, Full Monty. What's up? I did that. I got completely naked on stage.
Well, that would certainly change a person.
I didn't invite my parents, but that happened. And I played a reverend. I've played drag roles. I played a mom in Bat Boy probably about 8 years ago. So it's crazy, and I've seen some funny stuff, and a lot of it's in jest, but a lot of it's like, man, this is some serious business. I've been in some serious shows that have dealt with some serious topics.
Right.
And you have to, there's a show coming up right now that I'm on the board for the Augusta Players, and so we're doing Ragtime. We're opening our 75th season. And, there was some question, about whether or not in Ragtime they were going to say the N-word. And Ragtime is set around the turn of the century in New York City, and there's three different people group. Basically, you have the natives, the Americans, mm-hmm. which are ironically not the natives, but the Americans. And then you have the Jewish immigrants, and then you have the African American culture, in New York City, and how all that mingles together to create this beautiful story of Ragtime. Mm-hmm. And there's a racist in that show, and I was going to audition for that show, and I ended up not being able to because I have a wedding, but and he says the N-word mm-hmm. a lot, and so there were some people who were like, I'm not comfortable with that. Well, how do you set the story? How do you tell the story properly if you don't use the word? Mm-hmm. It's acting, it's not real life. Mm-hmm. Now, it happens in real life, and that's the doggone shame, but how do you can't sugarcoat art. To me, like with that, like you got to do it. You got to, and if you're not comfortable with it, that's cool. But
well, it does bring up, a topic that is definitely. I think this is a place where that would make people uncomfortable on both sides.
Yeah. It's not fun sometimes, for
and,
sure.
And that is something that is still a struggle in our culture.
Oh, no
How
doubt.
to redefine, how to look at the past, how to redefine it in the present and then towards the future. And I think mm-hmm. people really struggle with what is correct and what's not, what's going to move us forward and what's not.
Yeah.
So
no
that's interesting. So I have on here, you must never sleep. Is it hard to prioritize your time between pursuits? So really, how do you prioritize what you're a part of, the productions you're a part of? Is it something that just sort of organically happens depending on your schedule, or do you have a goal in mind? Are you leaning more towards music? Are you leaning more towards theater? Or is it all just sort of a process of, this is what I want to do with my life right now, and this is kind of what informs your decisions?
Yeah, so for me, it immediately starts with, do I want to do it? You know?
It seems like an obvious question, but it's really not, because I think a lot of people take on roles or things that they don't want, and I think that art suffers, so I think that's a good first question.
Yeah, do I want to do this? And if the answer is yes, then you start to throw it into the queue of, okay, well, what have I already committed to? Like, for instance, with Going South, I've been wanting to do something for the Augusta Players as a fundraiser, specifically for Camp Wonderland, for probably close to over a half decade, about 5 or 6 years. And just never really found the thing that I wanted to do, you know? And then when that came across, it's like, this is what I want to do. Yep, I'm going to do it. And so then it just became, all right, well, what all is it going to take? When you're talking about a role, I like to do things that challenge me as a person and also challenge me vocally. I want to try things that are difficult. Because with singing sometimes, because it does come easy sometimes. I've never had a lesson in my entire life. I've never had a vocal lesson. And people ask me all the time, they're like, hey, can you teach me? No, I can't. I have no idea. I don't know what I do. I just do. Like, I can't explain it. It's like a guy who just woke up one day and was just fast. Usain Bolt woke up and he was fast. And I'm not a world record gold medalist vocalist, but I just woke up and could sing. And so, like, I don't know how to, of course you work on your craft, you have natural talent, but then you have to define and refine that talent. But
right.
And some of that comes with trying to stretch yourself. Like you asked earlier, how's theater, what kind of person, and man, 10 years ago, I would have never gotten naked on stage.
That takes a lot of, balls.
Yeah. Oh, lots of balls.
To do that.
Edit that out. Oh, man.
Let me start over. Okay.
No, that's great. Leave it. Because it's true, there were 6 pairs on that stage.
Oh, God.
There wasn't just me.
Well, that's just yours.
No. We did it. Like the whole thing was about. It's based on the movie The Full Monty. Back in the late 90s, mid 90s, and it's guys down on their luck, and they see their wives get all excited to go see a Chippendales type show, and so they're like, man, what's the difference between us and them? We can do that. And of course, my character was the non-bravado one. He was like very insecure about his body, and very timid and like, and so that was actually, and that's why I love playing that role, because that's not who I am.
Right.
Like, I don't care. Like, I'm fat, cool, whatever. So it was a different, viewpoint that I had to take. Like, okay, how would someone react, or how would I react as this person, knowing that I'm insecure, or knowing that I'm not comfortable with who I am, and I'm, and he had a smoking hot wife. My wife was played by Brandy Brunch, and she is smoking hot, and so that was kind of cool. And yeah, so it ended up being a lot of fun. And then of course at the end, not to give spoiler alert, the bravado one, totally normal in male culture, right? The one who had all the ego and the bravado, he chickened out. And me being the timid one, I was like, after my wife and me and we kind of realized our relationship, I was like, the hell with it, let's do it. So I was the one who kind of, and the character was the one who kind of pushed it forward. His name's Dave, but yeah, so prioritizing is hard. Like right now, I can't do as much theater personally as I have in the past, because I do Going South and because I do Ed Turner.
Right.
So now it's gotten to the point where if I'm going to do a theater show, it's something I really want to do, because I have to really carve out time.
Right. Well, and that brings up an important point, because you are such an accomplished, since you began, such an accomplished performer. Do you find that, how does Augusta weigh in on how it supports its creative community financially with, and obviously, parents of the world always tell their children, don't go to school for music and for the arts. You'll never make any money. And, I'm sure in this case it's kind of universally true in some ways. But what's your feeling about the temperature of Augusta? How does Augusta support its performers, its musicians, its artists? What is there strong and what is lacking, in your opinion?
I will say that I think Augusta does an absolutely amazing job of growing up young artists. Our high schools and especially Davidson, our high schools, especially from a musical theater, or classical art of performance, dance, orchestra, things like that. I think our area, not so much Aiken County, no offense, I love Aiken County, it's where I grew up, but Richmond and Columbia County do an amazing job of growing up kids that are exposed to things that when we were growing up, we probably weren't exposed to. And making it part of their curriculum. There are so many talented kids that I'm just like, wow, I'm blown away. I really am. Where I think Augusta, because they have an interesting dynamic, we're 2 hours from Atlanta, 2 hours from Greenville, 2 hours from Charleston, 2 hours from Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And those are 4 really big hubs for tours and for, traveling companies and just metropolitan areas, And I think Augusta does a really good job.
Do they have the ability to keep them here, though? And if not,
I don't think they do.
What do you think is?
I don't think they do.
The missing link. Is there something that is it just a matter of sheer size of population, or are there frustrations here that maybe we need to take a second look at?
I think this is just me. Right, this was not a prepared interview, so this is just me
putting him on the spot
off the cuff. I think honestly, that we do have a large demographic, but it's a very diverse demographic. There are a lot of different cultures in this area, and it's hard. I know from a theater standpoint, no way. There's no way. There's not even all of our theaters here are amazing, and I love them, but they're community. They don't pay. The ballet no longer pays. They used to pay when I was coming up. When I was just in theater, they had a company, but now they don't. Tammy Westford and those ladies over there, they do an amazing job. But as far as I know, all of their dancers are volunteer, or maybe stipend, but not like this is their profession, where this is what they do. So that makes it tough. And the symphony, of course, they draw from all around, but there are symphony members here who. But again, that's not what they do. They teach. There's a lot of teachers at Augusta State or University of Augusta now, so really no, there's not. And our film group is trying their best to get their act together, and that's a real struggle bus right now.
Yeah, that I've noticed that is kind of a struggle. That just to be recognized and to be given the officiality of the other arts in this area.
Yeah, I saw that, and then from a music standpoint, that's where it goes back to the diversity of the demographic. It's so hard to carve out something that hits enough of the demographics to happen. Augusta's extremely saturated with musicians right now.
There's a lot of excitement in the musical community. I would say there's a lot of community in the musical community.
Yeah, and it's extremely saturated. And by that I mean there's a lot of good musicians, and there's a lot of people who do a lot of the same things. But they play here way too often. The days of getting out on the road seem to be over. And I have no desire to do this. I mean, I'm absolutely the pot calling the kettle black. But I'm not a kid. I'm not a 24-year-old saying that I want to be a musician. That I want this to be my profession. I'm a guy who's like, I'm 37. If I was going to do that, it was 15 years ago. Right now, I want to do things that A, make me happy, B, help others, and C, puts a little green in my pocket. And by green, I don't mean marijuana. I mean cash. Because I don't smoke weed, personally. I mean, whatever you want to do.
Well, I mean that could, I think we could look at that one of two ways. Either, it could be a frustrating thing for sure, but if Augusta is strong in the preparation aspect, maybe as a community we can all focus on that and try and nurture a lot of the younger musicians who are coming up. Maybe that would be something to kind of focus on, is helping people sort of spread those wings when they're at that age and say, Augusta's my hometown, but I need to take it on the road. And then
I think we've taught them a lot of bad habits. Again, this is all off the cuff, so I'm just being real.
We want to keep it real here.
I think that the younger cats coming up, they've watched us, and I don't want to use the word lazy, because we're not. We work hard. Mm-hmm. But we spin our wheels a lot. We're not we're not woodshedding tunes. We're not learning stuff. We're not writing stuff. Mm-hmm. And again, this is me talking about me. I mean, mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of young people out there. There's some great musicians. The Village Sticks are amazing. JC is amazing. Taylor Swan's one of the best musicians I've ever met. He's extremely versatile. There's other kids. Kendall Levesque writes good tunes. Mm-hmm. There's some other guys and ladies out there that are really busting it. But it's hard because I feel like we've taught them some bad habits, like, man, play as often as you can, mm-hmm. make that $75 to $100 at Mellow Mushroom, and, work hard. And, the best thing that I've learned is that now that I'm in my 30s, I don't want to do that. I don't want to play to the same 10 people at Joe's Underground on a Thursday. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do that. No offense. I would rather play when I want to, mm-hmm. and store it up. And that's what these kids don't know. I would love for them to go read a book or, check out like Bruce Springsteen. I read his book. Man, he lived, breathed, and drank rock and roll. Pearl Jam's the same way. Like, mm-hmm. these kids, they immerse themselves in it. And they move from their home, to these places. Bruce Springsteen, he's from Freehold. Nobody's ever heard of Freehold, New Jersey, And he moved to, the shore and moved up to New York, and met people and worked hard, and it took him a long time. Sharon Jones, Jesus Lord, was like a club singer and was a damn police guard in a prison. At Rikers Island. She is,
world famous. So
yeah,
what did she do differently, do you think?
I don't know. And she caught the right break at the right time. She went to the right, audition and sang for the right cat who goes, damn, she's got something. Mm-hmm. And it matches what I'm working on, so let's go.
Right.
And sometimes it's just that simple. It really is. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of things that some of the older cats, and so my generation is the middle generation, and we're probably the one that's causing the most problems. But you have the older generation, these kids, these guys, Keith Jenkins, Chris Hardy, Mark Janistak, Brian Allen, all these older guys, not to be mean, just like, they were before me. And then, then you have our age group, and, we're doing the covers thing, Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, I love playing covers. Mm-hmm. I have fun playing rock and roll covers, but I don't play it all the time. So that for me, it's still enjoyable. If I had to do that every night, I'd hate it. If I had to do it all the time, I'd hate it. Mm-hmm. And then we have these younger guys that are writing good tunes. There's no reason why Edison Project didn't make it. There's no good reason. There's no secret formula. Mm-hmm. Those kids wrote great music. Great songs. They still do. Hell, I'm still close to, almost all four of them. But, they still write great music. And they just didn't hit. Mm-hmm. The right cat didn't see them.
Right.
The right person at the right time didn't see them. And, but they toured. They did it. And for me, I think it's hard in Augusta because there's limited options to play. Mm-hmm. And and everybody loves the word the scene. But there really isn't one. I'm sorry. There really isn't.
Okay, yeah. Tell me a little more about that. So, what do you mean by there isn't a scene?
Well, because there's no place where people go just to hear rock. or there's no place where people go just to hear music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're seen, and this is coming from somebody who books shows and plays here all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're seen as dependent upon a restaurant that has music in a corner,
Mm-hmm.
or a bar like Metro, who I love those boys, who unless you've carved out your nook, they would rather you just play covers and just don't be a nuisance and hold the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want you to do, booking shows at Metro.
Yeah, so there are scenes, but they're so, like you're saying, they're so diverse and so spread out and sort of tucked away into different locations in the area that they don't end up seeing a light of day beyond their own followers.
Yeah, so the last, man, this might hurt a lot of people's feelings, but I'm just going to be honest. The last scene that I remember in Augusta, Georgia was Sector 7.
Wow.
That was a legit scene. Now, not
so
my
what made
style.
it a scene? What made it
Man,
special?
you had people, you had cats that would go, it didn't matter who was playing. It didn't matter.
Mm.
You know?
Oh, so the venue itself becomes the scene.
Yeah, or like the whole thing. You had a lot of bands that were kicking, popping out music. And listen, I didn't really like that style of music. Didn't like it then, and I'm not a big fan of it now. But that's okay. We don't all have to love everything, I did love the band names. The band names were the most hilarious things. Glass Bottom Boat, the Menendez Family Reunion. That was one of my favorite band names. I mean, we saw Job for Cowboy down there. And man, I went just because it was the spot. I didn't know anything about the band. And I still don't. I wouldn't recognize one song that they did. Not one. If they walked in here and punched me in the face, I wouldn't have an idea who they are. But I went because it was the spot. It was the spot to be, Mm-hmm. And that kind of was weird for me because like the whole slam dancing and all that stuff has never been like my style, my deal. But it was interesting. But that was a scene, man. You had people coming from Florence and Wilmington. You had bands, national band. A Day to Remember played there, man. A Day to Remember.
What was the difference, you think? Was it the amenities of the venue?
No, that venue was
the
a dump.
Mindedness.
That venue was terrible. But what great venue back in the day, I mean, all those, CBGB's is probably a dump too, But yeah, I don't know what it was.
A
They
special
call
moment in time,
lightning in a bottle,
Yeah.
They call it lightning in a bottle.
What's the place to be at now?
I don't even know if there is one right now. I don't know that I could name a spot right now where I was like, you know what, night in, night out, if you go there, there's going to be good tunes.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be good music. And that doesn't matter, cover or original. And you had guys down there at Sector that were writing music. And again, it wasn't stuff that I personally enjoyed, but, they were doing it. They were getting in vans and they were making networks and connecting. And you're like, hey, you're from Wilmington, North Carolina. Come down here and you do a show with us. And then next week we're going to go up to Wilmington and we're going to do a show with you. And, or however it all worked through. And, I really think that, and I can't remember, I think his name was Nick. Was the guy, Nick Laws, I want to say, is the guy who ran that down there. And, he just caught a reputation in that industry and that corner of the genre of of music.
Mm-hmm.
And he became a trusted thing, and it became like, man, if you come to Augusta, you're going to have a killer show. It's going to be nuts. It's, and those kids, man, it was an all ages venue, so that helped. And man, they would walk in and it'd be like $20 a pop. It didn't matter.
Wow. And that says a lot for the establishment. I know that our only all ages venue recently, the Epicenter, is now closing.
Oh yeah.
So
Sector 7, did you ever get a chance to go to Sector?
I didn't.
It was a laundromat. It was a hollowed out laundromat. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Well, what would you say for the local artist would be the pathway for success? Like, what would, in your opinion, this is not like nailed down, but what would you say is the pathway for success for a local artist?
Well, I guess for me it would need to be for that artist to define what is success to them. And I think that's where a lot of the misunderstanding happens. I think that artists, if being successful to you is I make enough money to not have to do a real job or another job or whatever, however you want to phrase that, and I pay my bills and I can eat and live comfortably without having to have a 9-to-5er.
Mm-hmm.
If that's your level of success, then the best way to do that in Augusta, Georgia is get in a good cover band that plays 3 or 4 times a week, that also has a duo option out of that, and to be the singer or a lead guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a drummer or a bass player, time might get hard for you because there's just not enough full band spots, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you take Philip Lee Jr., for example.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Lee Jr. was a full-time musician. That's all he did. He played music. And he had 2 or 3 different, iterations or variations of his band. He had a full band set, which was him, Michael Badamy, Dwayne Lee Wilson, and Russell Jarrett on the drums. And they would play the Wild Wings. If there was a bigger show that they were opening for, like Rockford Doe or J.D. Simo at Sky City, may it rest in peace, or any of those places, he would have that full band, big, huge sound. Again, though, they would play, even though he had a record that had good success. I mean, he got to number 2 on the blues charts behind, like B.B. King and Etta James. He got all the way up there to the top, man. He would play like 2 or 3 originals, but most of the night was covers. Now, he was good about learning obscure covers and playing them. Like, he would go grab a Gary Clark Jr. song or, a Ryan Adams that a lot of people didn't know or wasn't super mainstream, or a Noah Gunderson. And he would mix in a lot of stuff that, if you're not a fan of music or you're not a fan of that particular artist, you might not know that song.
What's your philosophy on doing cover music? So, do you think you should do songs that are famous and that people know, or do you think you should do songs that are a little obscure?
This is Daniel Chavez, by the way. He's sitting a little bit off camera
I'm in the
here.
back, yeah.
He
I was
said
going
to
to come sit by him and give him a hug and all that, but
Well, maybe you should do that. Let's just do that for the cameras.
That could be good. That could be good. Oh, you're good. I don't know. I think that it's it's hard. It's hard to make a decision on that. So let's go to that after this. So let me finish this thought. So Phil would have that full band, and then he would break down to him and Mike only acoustic, and they could play in a small corner of a Mellow Mushroom, and that's where he got his Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday money, and then he would get the bigger band money on Fridays and Saturdays, and then he would be off on Sunday. So if that's your term of success, is making enough money to live, and live comfortably, or live just by eating ramen, whatever that, to live, then that's the best way to do that. But if your term for being successful is to make it, or to be famous, or write songs that are played on like a legit radio, then the blueprint is completely different. The blueprint is don't play out 4 or 5 times a week, because you're diluting your audience. Instead, spend that time rehearsing, writing, looking up, different things, finding influences, collaborating with other artists to write, and then tour, and you don't have to be gone for 8 weeks, go play Atlanta.
Well, like you mentioned, we're in a good spot so that so many hubs within a 2 to 3 hour radius.
Yeah.
So it's possible. It's possible to live here. And
it's just as simple as going to play Aiken. Aiken is 30 minutes from here, but it's might as well be another universe.
That's true.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. You could go play Aiken on a Friday, and all your Augusta friends ain't driving to Aiken.
Well, I mean, all your Augusta friends aren't going to drive to Atlanta either.
That's what I'm saying though. But that's available for you too. But not a lot of people have a connection there.
That's true.
They don't have a connection to get them into Eddie's Attic or the 40 Watt in Athens, or the Flicker Bar, or include whatever venue around. And that's where some of the older guard could help some of the newer guard. But it's hard, man, because we don't trust them.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere here for them to cut their teeth. There's nowhere here for them to go out and fail. And you got to fail before you can kill it. My favorite story I ever heard, and I don't even remember where I heard it from, but Pearl Jam had just released 10, the album 10. It's their original album.
It's their greatest album too,
And
by the way.
it's amazing.
Arguably.
And the guy who tells me the story says he worked for he was an AR rep for the recording record company.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Man, this has got this new band out of Seattle, and they're touring, and the shows just aren't going well. And I need you to go to Atlanta and kind of just let them know that the record's here, label's here, and we're supporting them."
Mm-hmm.
He said he went out and they just dropped in, and they played in Atlanta to like no one at the Tabernacle or something. And he said and then like a week later, the single blew up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's how quick it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think about what's the song? What's Lil Nas X? I mean, that's the American dream.
I mean, you can thank
that's
that.
the American dream.
That's the internet.
But-
You can thank the internet for that.
But you
right
know,
there.
that kid did that probably in the basement of his house.
So
yeah.
really, what the takeaway is for
And he caught a hook, and he caught lightning in the bottle.
Yeah.
And now he has the longest running #1 single of all time.
Yep.
Now the question is, what you gonna do next?
Well, I don't
you know.
think you want to ask Lil
Well,
Nas X
I
that.
think what
He might could do something though.
I think what's important to kind of see is that you can be here, you can be a musician, but you need to branch out. You need to think beyond Augusta, you know, and put your love here. But depending on if you're wanting to be a cover artist or a singer-songwriter or someone with an original full band, you know, you need to make sure that you don't let the community, which can be a warm and wonderful thing and a cocoon for us all to sort of rest in, but you really have to reach out beyond Augusta, because like you say, there's a limited amount of people here, there's a limited amount of ears, and
venues.
you know, and Augusta needs to push an artist out.
I thought that.
You know,
I thought
from
that was
Augusta,
true.
a new artist.
Yeah.
I thought that was true, but if you look at Arts in the Heart, there was 1,000 people there, easy, yesterday.
Probably more than
I'm more than that.
I think they average around 10.
And that's the 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now I could see that, but I mean that was my conservative estimate.
Mm-hmm. I mean throughout the entire festival.
But
Not
that being said,
Right.
there was so many people there, and that's kind of a reflection of how people handle music and local musicians in Augusta. Is that there's so many people here, and they don't pay attention. I mean that's a reflection of everything, but they don't pay attention to everything that's going on. You know, that I don't think that there's a way to reflect everything that's going on with the amount of people that there are.
I agree that it's a lot of stuff going on a lot of times, but I've also seen a couple of moments where a band or a musician or a performer has established themselves in a way that the room or the venue or the area will stop. And that's credit to that musician or that performer, because it's not an easy thing to do. And I think you have to have an understanding of, again, it's all about deciding who you are and who you want to be. You as an artist control your image, your rep, your genres you play. You know, I don't play outside of Metro and Wild Wings, and then I'm playing the Imperial or the Miller.
You wouldn't play the soul bar?
Probably not, because it's not my, like that place, which I love. I love Jason and Coco. I think they do a great job down there, and they do a lot of cool stuff. But the genre of music that is kind of catching hold there is not one that I enjoy nor am anywhere near good at.
Understood.
So you think it's a good thing for a particular venue to kind of have their own niche?
I absolutely believe that. Metro, when I started booking at Metro, the first thing I did was to try and establish a style or a genre that worked at Metro. And it was, you know, tattoos, beards,
and yeah.
And that's what I wanted. And that's what the owners wanted. You know, that's what they liked. So when you get musicians that play there, there's a reason why great bands don't play there. You know, Hound of Goshen. It's a good band. Been around for a long time. Brian Allen does great work. That band doesn't work at Metro. And it's not because Metro's awesome and they're not. It's because they're both awesome.
It's just not a
in their own
congruency.
spot.
Yeah.
Speaking of Brian Allen, who I like him, he's a cool dude.
Yeah. I like Brian.
Do you think you should be able to wear shorts on stage?
I'll put it this way.
The shorts question.
I'll put it this way.
We're gonna set social media ablaze with this one.
I've already set it ablaze talking about the scene.
There's been a lot of conversation about this topic.
Here's my my personal rule. I don't wear shorts on stage, personally.
You get up there all handsome though, and rock
I don't.
out there.
I'm not a bit. I just don't like wearing
Shave
shorts.
up a little bit. And,
Sometimes I dress up. Sometimes, but I like to not wear shorts, and I don't like anyone who's on stage with me to wear shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's going south and somebody wore shorts, I would literally make me change.
Well, and that's your,
There's only one exception to that. The drummer, because whatever.
you can't tell the backup singers what to wear. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
you can.
They
if
can
it's
get.
your
They can
show,
wear
you totally
hot
can.
shorts.
Well, women
You
are
can.
different. Women play with a completely different set of rules as they do in life. So, I think it's a style thing. For me, it's a style thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, because that whole argument made me giggle. Because
That's
were
why I like to talk about it.
people
because
were
it's
like,
humorous.
they would
humorous.
grab a picture of Eddie Vedder and they'd be like, he's playing in shorts. You gonna tell Eddie Vedder he can't do it? And I'm like, no, because Eddie Vedder's a freaking rock star.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want past the point.
You know who you're not, Mr. Playing at Mellow on a Thursday? You're not a rock star.
Yeah, and you ain't gonna tell the boss of a venue.
You know what I'm
not
saying?
to wear. If someone hires you to be a mariachi band, you're not gonna tell them you're not gonna wear the
hat.
Yeah, exactly. You're not gonna wear the mariachi outfit. I totally understand that aspect of it.
But I don't care. Like when I walk up and I see Beta-Me or Kendall or anybody wearing shorts, I don't go, man, what a loser. I just like, cool, whatever. Like it doesn't bother me.
To each his own.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother
me.
me.
It is funny.
And those boys know it. And they know it. Beta-Me when we're at the Imperial, Beta-Me when we're at the Miller, he ain't repping shorts and flip flops.
Yeah.
He's got on badass boots and he's got on a nice pair of jeans.
Oh, and that jacket too.
Yeah, he ain't. He knows. And I think that's the thing, is that there's no concrete rule in life. I don't think there's absolutely no concrete rule in style.
No,
or
I
or
really
music,
appreciate the troll aspect of the whole idea.
No, I really think Brian believes it.
No, he might believe it.
I think
but
Brian
at the same
believes
time,
it deep down in his soul.
At the same time, it makes for some amazing reading. Like the whole comment section of that.
It got out of control.
I can seriously enjoy though. And that might be sadistic of me on a level, but I enjoyed
I read it.
the whole thing.
I read it.
And for some people, I think success is on the scale of, I can do this because I love it, not because I have to, or not because it's feeding me today. Sometimes that's a better situation for yourself in life, is to do something that you love outside of the thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
Or the thing that...
I did that for like 6 years, and when I turned 30, I kind of decided that, all right.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And I had a blast. Man, I don't remember some of the times, but I had a hell of a lot of fun, and made a lot of great friends. And, when I turned, it's like 30 or 31, and I'll tell you what it was. My uncle, who was a full-time musician, he worked at a church, got fired. And for his whole life, he'd been a musician. Mm. And now he was a 58-year-old worship leader. Mm-hmm. And nobody's trying to hire a 58-year-old worship leader. And so I sat down and I was like, whoa. Right now I'm 29, 30. I could still do this. But do I really want to be that 65-year-old playing a show at Joe's Underground on a Wednesday for $50?
Right.
So I can pay my light bill and eat a sandwich?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to be that guy? And for me, mm-hmm. the answer was no, I don't. And so I had a degree that I was blessed to have through a vocal scholarship, and went and got a job, and got extremely lucky to get an Ed Turner number 9, which provided me a platform. Mm-hmm. Without Ed Turner number 9, there would be no Going South. Mm-hmm. That is, Going South is, and this is the thing, guys, pay attention. The playbook is out there. It's there. And all I did was I was in Ed Turner's band, and I just watched, and I listened, and I shook hands, and I networked, and I made the right connections and friends, mm-hmm. and I waited for my time to find my thing. And Ed's thing was the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't start that way. They've started by covering Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then they sit down and like, man, that was a lot of fun. We should do something else. Well, hell, I love the Beatles. Well, shit, I love the Beatles too. And then bada bing, bada boom. Well, they're going to cover the Beatles album.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they stumbled on that. That was no like mastermind moment of I've been waiting for the Beatles albums to get 50 years old so I can cover. You know, Ed might tell you
Yes,
it is.
it's time.
You know, but you know, and it was just that moment. It was paying attention and networking and meeting the right people, and then when the idea came, you know, develop a game plan and take a risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the first Going South was a huge risk. You know, I went out and I got that band, you know, and that band's loaded with, you know, heavy hitters, and the backup singers were awesome. One of them's right here. And, you know, and I went and I personally guaranteed each person their money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I said, hey, you're guaranteed this amount of money. Win, lose, or draw. You know, no one shows up. You're still going to get this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was on the tape that night. You know, by the time the show came, we had sold enough tickets. I was off the tape. But, you know, like when I signed that contract at the Miller Theater, you know, put that deposit down.
The
like
risk you had taken
I'd
on
taken
yourself.
about a $6,000 risk.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
a hefty risk.
And so, you know, but I bet on myself, you know, and I bet on the team that I'd put together, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we did well. It went well. So I mean, but you know, the playbook's out there. You know, any of these guys, you know, I've talked to Kendall Levesque about this not too long ago. Like, you know, man, what do I need to do? Man, book a show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe the Miller might be a little too big. You know, but you know, Le Chat Noir.
Right.
You know, that place will hold 100.
Are they booking musical acts? Are they booking shows like that of that nature?
I think that any of those venues, you know, like Enterprise Mill or Hav and the boys over at Enterprise Mill or Chris Bailey at Le Chat Noir, I think if it's the right venue and the right, you know, guy or lady, yeah.
Well, and I know that
You know?
Peck's show, the Dime Museum,
Mm-hmm.
the Dime Museum, he's actually hosting some things there. He's showed a lot of interest in booking local talent and, you know, up and coming or just anything. He basically said, I just want people in here doing music.
Well,
I want
yeah,
people
and
in
so-
here doing things. So,
Yeah,
you know.
and that's what I love about Metro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, bringing it back to Metro. You know, I book at Metro, and it's an established spot.
Right.
So you have to be smart about what you put in there, and you have to be smart about when you go there.
Mm-hmm.
If I book you, we have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, you got to play this long, and it's got to be about
a little more
70-30.
stringent.
70-30 covers to original. You can throw some originals
Mm-hmm.
in there. Because, I mean, Kendall plays there, Matt Acosta,
Mm-hmm.
Will McCraney, you know, Phil used to play there a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And they would sprinkle covers in.
Right.
I mean, they would sprinkle originals in over covers, but it's got to be a predominantly cover spot because it's a bar.
Right.
It's not a music venue. You know, we tried to do that. We did try.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we brought in Coulter Wall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Coulter Wall played in that room. You know, we brought in Maggie Kerner,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Sarah Shook and the Disarmers. You know, we brought in a band called Ona that's blowing up right now. It's on the same label as Tyler Childers.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we did it. You know, it just didn't work
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't fair to the artist who's like, man, nobody's paying attention. You know, like
yeah.
the front half
The
of the bar.
environment has to be
The front,
cultivated.
the front half of the bar is paying attention. The front half, they're loving it and they're giving me everything. But man, the back, they're just so loud because there's the guy who goes to Metro no matter what's playing,
Right.
no matter who's playing.
And not for the music, but necessarily, but
They
just
go
to be
there because I mean, music's good, but they could leave it, take it or leave it,
Mhm.
and they're gonna go there regardless of who's playing. And that's the hardest thing to explain to people.
Mhm.
You know, oh man, you know, I drive the needle. Yeah, no, you don't. You know, most people in this town don't,
Mhm.
and that's not a mean thing to say. It's just fact.
Right.
You know, I mean, I could show them the proof. You know, and because if you really thought you drove the needle, you would go get your own show, and you would make that money for yourself.
Mhm.
You know, and you know, and that's a hard thing to say because it's a hard thing to hear. It's because you know we're all sensitive creatures,
Oh yes.
musicians,
Especially
creative.
musicians.
Yeah, well, me too,
And
man.
artists.
I'm real sensitive, you know, and you have to just be okay. Like, all right, you have to be real with yourself and go,
Yeah.
you know what? This in my life right now, when I'm playing this gig, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And if I want to make that $200 or if I want to make that $150, I have to do X.
Mhm.
And if I'm not willing to do X, then I'm not gonna be able to make that kind of money.
Right. Well, and I think musicians sometimes they need a little help with the real world business of, of marketing yourself, of picking the right gigs, of deciding why you're choosing those gigs, how much money you need to make. I think, especially myself, and then we'll kind of move on to another question because we're trying to get towards the end, but
I'd go on it.
Yeah. And the cameras could go, well, for a couple more hours, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Might send Dan.
Are you going to edit this? This is going to be dropped in full.
We're going to edit it.
Oh, okay. I mean, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, well, we may edit it. I don't know.
Throw the whole thing out there.
We'll see. We'll see
Peace.
what happens.
Peace, love, gator tail.
But yeah, I think that maybe that's something maybe that's a need for this town, is someone to step up and sort of make it their job or part-time job, just to be more of an educator or more of a sort of foster these young musicians who have all these questions. I mean, you would be a great person, but you're super busy, so I mean, you couldn't officially take on that title. I'm sure you do it as you come across it.
Yeah, there are certain people I help now, but I don't have all the answers for every, because what might work for my genre and my spots might not be the ticket for someone else in another band or another. I wouldn't know the first thing about a punk rock band. I wouldn't know the first thing about that.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to do what I like and what I know, yeah, there's some conversations that I could have, some lessons that I've learned that I can share to maybe not make you have to learn them.
Right.
And there's some musicians in this town that, that I like as friends. I don't necessarily like their music, but I like them as friends. And then there's some people like, I don't like them.
Well,
but I love their tunes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. But I like their music. Like, oh my gosh, it's a great song, but he's kind of a dickhead, or she's kind of a jerk,
That never happens in music.
But they probably think the same about me, and they're right sometimes. We all have that moment,
Right. Well, I've really enjoyed talking with you today, but I have one more question.
Hit me. I'm open book.
Is there anything about you, or tell us one thing about yourself that others might be surprised to know? So we spent a lot of time talking about music and theater, but let's talk about Ryan Abel, the man.
That's kind of.
You want to share with the class?
I'm pretty open though. This is a hard question for me. Let me think. Man, one thing about myself that others might not know or be surprised to know. Well, I've already told you that I write poetry. That's usually my go-to for something like that. I really. Okay, I have one, and you'll never believe this, but this is the Lord's truth. I am a fake extrovert. I'm more of an introvert as a person.
Really?
Yeah. I recharge being by my damn self.
So that must be difficult for you because you
I have a superpower.
in the public eye so often.
I have a superpower. My superpower, and I tell people this all the time, it rarely does it happen. I can fall asleep anywhere, anytime. I can just kind of shut it off.
That's also something I didn't know about you.
I can just go, all right, love you guys, I'm out. I could probably, we could stop this interview, turn the light off. I could roll over on this couch and be out in probably 10, 15 minutes. That's true story. And part of that's probably because I'm so damn tired all the time.
Wow, yeah.
But, that's, man, I don't know. Yeah, I'm an introvert, I think.
That's wild. That is, you heard it first on Sample Augusta.
Because, I don't know, it's like a switch, that turns on. I'll tell you another thing. I have trouble connecting one-on-one. I have trouble connecting, and
that's unusual for someone who is a fake extrovert, because a lot of times I think introverts tend to they're more comfortable when it's just a few people. I mean, I only say that because I'm an introvert. I'm sort of a fake extrovert. If I have the reason, like the Sample Augusta, hey guys, but other than that, I'm kind of the same. But I'm more comfortable either in a crowd where I'm not speaking to anyone, I'm completely, nobody knows who I am, I'm just wandering through, or if it's just this.
Well, I think I've conditioned myself to be okay to do that. Because I grew up, I'm an only child, and I very vividly remember, and on my street, the closest kid to me older than I was like 4 or 5 years. And the closest kid younger than me was like 4 or 5 years. So I was literally by myself on my entire neighborhood street. So I remember playing football with trees. Like I would drop back. This is a true story. I would drop back and I would throw the pass, and if I hit the tree, it was a completion.
Nice.
And I got to move forward to the next set of trees. This is real. This is real life. 106 Spring Hill Court, baby, North Augusta, South Carolina, 29841. Now it's 29860, but So I learned at a young age that if I didn't want to be lonely, that I had to perform. I had to not be who I was.
That's interesting.
And I had to be comfortable and condition myself to walk into a room and immediately find a way to connect with as many people as possible.
Well, I know that you've been successful at that because you had to, some poor unfortunate fellow, when I changed my Facebook account, you had to kick somebody off to add me back to your account.
That is so true.
I'm sorry to whoever.
I went back and found your old profile and deleted that one.
Oh, you deleted my old one. Okay.
Yes,
the old
but no, I didn't. In that moment, I was like, I scrolled through it, like, so, all right, so I used to be the guy who was like, if I don't know you, I'm not accepting your friend request, man. But then, when you start playing with Ed Turner No. 9 and those kind of things, there's so many wonderful people who are, they're your fans. And it's so weird to say that because we're a cover band. But, and you don't want to be that guy. Well, I asked Ryan to be my friend, but he turned me down.
Right.
So I just started accepting, anyone and everyone that had, mutual friends that I knew. Like, I wouldn't accept some rando.
Yeah.
No mutual friends.
How that can go.
No mutual friends, and it's a very attractive Latin woman wearing next to nothing. Okay, lady, I would remember you. You don't exist, at least not to me. And so then I felt, why does Facebook have 5,000 friends limits? I don't understand.
I don't know.
But yeah,
they under anticipated the amount of friends people could truly have.
Or they recognize that too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that's something that as a parting shot, that's something that Augusta musicians need to learn. We all need to learn. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing in the long run. Don't be so short-sighted. Don't think about how am I going to make my next $100. Because you might be costing yourself your career.
And that's solid advice.
Yeah. Too much of a good thing can be bad.
But when it comes to Ryan Abel, you can never have too much of a good thing. So definitely check him out. His upcoming performances.
Yeah, there's a couple.
You want to tell us this just as a recap, the show dates and.
All right. Yeah, sure.
Names?
So Schrodinger's Cat, we'll start there every first Friday. I don't always play because there's a big troupe. This beautiful lady was also a member of that troupe for a while. And so there's a big group of us, and so they pick, but that's every first Friday at Le Chat Noir, 8 and 10. And then October 4th, an evening at Rosemary Inn. Take a trip with me back to the 1920s, and we're going to do a lot of fun stuff, piano, classical, Sinatra, Elvis, Broadway, Judy Garland, Ava Gardner, all that kind of stuff. And then November the 29th is Going South, Black Friday at the Miller Theater. You can get your tickets there at millertheateraugusta.com. It's called Brothers and Sisters, named after one of the Allman Brothers albums. And then in December, it's the second weekend. I'm not sure the date, so I apologize for that. Christmas Carol with the Augusta Players is coming up, and I'll be the ghost of Christmas Present. And I speak in a Cockney
with a long
accent.
beard or a longer beard.
With a thicker beard.
Thicker beard.
Yeah, and that's a lot of fun because I get to sing and speak in an accent, And that's always a lot of fun.
Well, that's exciting. Thank you for spending your time and with us and overcoming your one-on-one thing.
Well, I know you. That's different.
And your introvertedness. So we appreciate it.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I had a great time.
All right.
Peace.